Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Folks, happy Friday. Yes, look, we got a lot to talk about. Can we talk about the mugshot, folks? The mugshot scene around the world. Former President Donald Trump turned himself in yesterday and produced a mugshot that is one for the ages. I'm going to share with you what the president looked like and what his cohorts look like as well. And more importantly, what does that say about where we are politically in this country? We'll have that conversation. Also, the historic March on Washington, the core ideas are still resonating as we're celebrating 60 years of that great gathering. We'll talk a little bit about that. Later on, we could talk about how one Florida school apologizes to Black students and parents for having an assembly where they told Black students, if you don't get your test scores up, you might end up in prison or killed. Guess what? The students are in elementary school. So we'll talk a little bit about that and a whole lot more. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Big shout out to everyone that's tuning in. As we're streaming live on a number of different spaces and platforms. Big shout out to our home website, blackstarnetwork.com, where you can see all of the great shows, all the past episodes of The Culture, and all of the dynamic programming we got to offer here on the Black Star Network. So make sure y'all do your due diligence. Go to the website today, download the app for free, and most importantly, give something to continue to power this momentum and movement as we have this revolution of digital media. So we're there on blackstarnetwork.com. Also, you can find us on Amazon News. That's can be found on your Fire TV. Just let Alexa know that you want to play Black Star Network on your Fire TV, and boom, this pretty face will come up for you right now. Also, you can find us on Plex TV, folks. Plex TV, big shout out to them for carrying the show as well in the network. You can search for Black Star Network and find us under live TV with news and opinion right there on Plex TV. And we're streaming live for your favorite social media. Right now we're streaming on Facebook, where you can check us out under Roland Martin's Facebook page. And you can find us under Roland Martin's YouTube page. And that's where you'll find, man, oh man, the great culture crew, the community of folks. There we go. There's no other place on the planet or on the digital web space like the culture crew, where we're having conversations about what's happening in Black America each and every day. So you can find them to be there, checking in with my OG legacy culture crew members, man, who are always there supporting us. We can't thank them enough. But if you have not had an opportunity to join the conversation and chat, and it gets deep, it gets hot and gets heavy, but trust and believe you will not want to miss one word that's posted on the Culture Crew chat on our YouTube page under Roland Martin. So join us in the conversation. We got, oh man, Anastasia, I see you. Damon, peace and blessings. Happy, hey kings and queens. Pretty Brown Mimi, happy Friday to you too, Mimi. Thank you. My big brother Willie Frazier checking in. Thank you so much, Brother Willie. Robin Welsh, happy Friday to you. Thank you. Deidre, I see you. Deidre Hall, good to see you. J.L. Fields, always keeping us up to date. Good afternoon, J.L. You said Donald Trump is already raising money off his ugly mugshot. Did you expect anything different? My sister, Lori Parks, thank you so much, Lori, for checking in. Brian Christian, good to see you, sir. Love to connect with you and hear what you got to say about today's conversations. And Vic Abram, I got you. Jeremy Campbell, thank you so much for checking in as we do a little bit of that Culture Crew roll call. And folks, again, you could join us in the conversation. We're under Roland Martin on YouTube, and let's get chatting. All right, folks, let me talk about what everyone else is talking about. Y'all been wanting to talk about this. Let's talk about the mugshot. But I can't do this unless I got my brother right there with me. Man, oh man, I'm always happy to have him joining us in the conversation. My brother, Shanedu Wakofor, DEI specialist and also an activist and organizer and advocate. Brother Shanedu, happy Friday. How you feeling, bro?
Man, I'm feeling good.
Oh man, are you feeling good? Or are you like feeling good?
Good question. Who knows?
My man Sinead checking in as always. All right, Sinead, let's talk about the first thing that everybody's talked about. I think it dropped. I'm seeing what time was it last night? I saw it. I can't even. I think I saw the mugshot around about 7:30, 8 o'clock here in LA. So you figure it was late. It was a little bit, a couple hours after he had surrendered in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm just doing a little research and a little talk and just checking the web and see what it's everywhere. This mugshot. Let's show it. Let's show it one more time. Let's show it. There it is. Former President Donald Trump. First mugshot of him since he's been indicted on any count. So this is his fourth indictment, first mugshot, folks. Fulton County Sheriff's Department down in Georgia had a mugshot, which I think is on brand. This is a mugshot on brand. A lot of people thought it was funny. I mean, it's funny. It's got a little something to it, but this is on brand. This is what you would expect from Donald Trump, where he's wearing a suit. He's not wearing an orange suit, Sinead. He's wearing his signature navy blue suit, red tie, white shirt, and looking like he's trying to do another episode of The Apprentice. So this mugshot that is seen around the world. This wasn't the only mugshot, bro, Sinead. Man, oh man, have you seen his cohorts, brother?
I have.
That wasn't seen. I'm glad. Look, this wasn't the mugshot that got me. This was Donald Trump. I seen Rudy Giuliani, the King, and let's pull Rudy up there. Let's put little Rudy up there. Rudy's mugshot looked pretty interesting. He looked. You could tell he's nervous. "Quote unquote" America's mayor. Mm-hmm. But what do you make of this as we looking at this? The conversation is not necessarily about the mugshot. It's just the simple fact that this man is actually running for president, and he has a mugshot. Come on, Sinead, help me understand where we are with this thing, right? The man is running for president, and I've seen a couple of videos. I've seen people like Joanne Reed and D.L. Hughley and other people are circulating videos of people who were out there on the ground in Atlanta showing their support. I saw a very disturbing video of a black man wearing the N-word for Trump across his shirt. He said, literally, it says Niggas. There was no, you know how some term of endearment in his spelling. It was Niggas for Trump. And it disturbed me. And he was like, I don't believe the president. He's my president. He didn't do anything wrong. I saw some other folks of the supporters of the president. An older white woman said, I still think of him as the president of the United States. Joe Biden is not my president. What is going on, Sinead?
Well, a couple of things. First and foremost, I mean, I wasn't too enthused with the mugshot. I'm like, until I see him in handcuffs, I don't care. Because it's not real until it's in handcuffs. This is just, almost parading. I'm very proud of the prosecutors for getting this far. But, I mean, this whiteness protects white men. And that's why that man walked in and walked out. You or me, we don't get those options. We can have
20 minutes, bro. He was only there for 20 minutes.
It's not even about money. We can have lawyers that went to the same college that his lawyers went to. But if you're not a white man, it's not happening for you. Okay, because OJ wasn't poor, but he was in jail. But this is my issue here. We have to also understand that there's a bigger message beyond just hatred that's going on here. Because I think looking at Donald Trump being, booked or whatever mugshot, it's not enthusing because white men getting away with what white men do is again, very American. And I thought of that when I watched the Republican debate and I saw the other contestants who were just spewing similar rhetoric. And I'm just like, there is no room to be surprised because this is on brand. The people who wrote the Constitution for this country own slaves. And I say that to say, like, whiteness has never, it's never sidewinded itself from the circus. These people are crazy and have been presenting themselves as crazy. My only issue is that this indictment is probably going to help him become the nominee, because he is, I mean, beating the next candidate in the Republican Party by almost 20-something points. It's not hurting him. But what does this mean? And I'll tell you what it means. Believe it or not, I think Americans are tired of politicians. Donald Trump is a liar. Donald Trump is a ne'er-do-well, a nincompoop, all these things. But he comes off to many of his followers unlike everybody else. And I folks are sick of politicians politicking their lives. I think it has less to do with who's intelligent and who's going to actually make a change. Are you bold enough to say shit that is not just for TV? Are you bold enough to not be quote unquote controlled by interest groups or whatever? I think that, other than the ignorance, that is what people say when they are, leaning towards him. It's being tired of the old guard.
I would agree. I would agree. I think there is what do they call this? I think they call this like a rebellious vote, a protest vote. That's the terminology that is used. When you pick a candidate that doesn't fit the quote unquote normal criteria of what a politician should be, a candidate that has some polarizing qualities about himself, a candidate that is controversial, it's called a protest vote. But I don't think that there are some people who's all in for Donald Trump. You and I know that. There's some people who really believe him.
Yes.
But there are going to be some other people who still support him because he's not like the establishment. He's not like the quote unquote Washington elite. He's not a part of that group. Even though he's still elite in the spaces that he's in, he's still the guy in certain spaces. So I think that your analysis is on point. And it speaks volumes, bro. This really speaks volumes about things. Let me just share this one. We got to take a quick pause. I think, who was this? Let me see. Lori, you said this is history. Lori Parks, you said this is history. No other president doesn't have a criminal mugshot except Trump. Question is, Lori, will it make a difference? You're right. You are absolutely right. This is historic. But at the end of the day, will it make a difference? The man got assigned an inmate number. He got his fingerprints done. He got this mugshot taken. Will it make a difference? Now, here's the other part about this, and then we got to take a break. This mugshot shenanigan went around the world. If he's chosen as a Republican nominee, how can you justify criminal activity or be the moral authority for the rest of the world when one of the top candidates is a criminal with a mugshot? How can you walk the earth as America with a big stick telling other people how to govern their people when you put a criminal as one of your top political candidates, presidential candidate? Right now, America is a laughing stock of the world. It's a laughing stock of the world. Because there's no justification. You can't. And the Republican Party, let's be more specific. The party is coming off like a joke. The party is seen as a joke. Because if this is your guy, and then what are you going to go say when you go to Europe? When you go to the islands, to Africa, what do you say when you go to all these different places around the world? America is a place of values. They be like, man, please. One of your top candidates is a criminal with a mugshot, and y'all still talking about putting him in office. See, this is the unfunny part, Sinead, of this whole drama. The unfunny part is, one, this is real. The other unfunny part is, guess what? This is a clear indicator of where we are as a constituency in this country, that, you know what, regardless of whom or what, we're willing to put just about anybody in the highest seat in the land that have access to the most sensitive information that has the power to govern all of these people, guess what? That's going to be our guy. I got to take a quick pause. Got to take a quick pause. And because on the other side, Sinead, we got to talk about the 2 black folks that were a part of his quote unquote colleagues that were a part of this drama. Folks, stay with us. The conversation's getting hot. Of course, I want to hear from you. Just stay with us. We got a lot to cover in this first hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. I'm checking in with my man and Culture Crew member, Sinead Okorafor, as we talk about the Trump mugshot, and more importantly, talking about the implications. What does this mean, especially as we kick off the presidential campaign season, especially when America is more polarized now than it has ever been before. And now this mugshot, a mugshot that has instantly become an artifact of history, a mugshot that has been seen all around the world, a mugshot that many people try to decipher what was going on in the mind of the former president at the moment that he took the shot. All of these things. But my big thing, folks, is that all of this drama is playing out on not just on the national stage, but on the world stage. That's the big thing. It's all playing out on the world stage. And how Americans deal with this moment is going to be indicative of where we are politically, socially, and even morally. Let me bring my brother Sinead back into the conversation. Sinead, here's the thing that I wanted to share as we talk about this, talking about that moral authority, because America is going to be seen as a joke, right? If the Republican Party still supports Donald Trump, and that's what they said they would do, Sinead. on that stage on debate night on Wednesday night, when the question was asked, if this man is convicted, would you still support him? How many of you would still support him? 6 out of 8 candidates raised their hand. 6 out of 8 candidates raised their hand to say we would support him if he becomes the nominee. And guess what? In order to be on that debate stage on Wednesday night, those same 8 candidates had to sign a waiver from the RNC, the Republican National Convention, saying that whoever is going to be the nominee, you will put your full support and resources behind that person. And they agreed to it. So if it ends up being Trump, that means you're locked in legally. You wouldn't have seen me on that debate stage. I'd be like, oh, bump it. I can't. I'm not signing that. Especially if a guy this is the guy that looks like he's going to be the candidate. 6 out of 8, Sinead.
You're not going to like what I'm going to say next.
I'm waiting, brother. I'm waiting, man. Say what you need to say.
This is my thing. And I know we're talking about Trump, but I want to be very clear that I don't like this on either side when there is no room for dissension. Remember, in a classroom sometimes, there are 2 types of people who don't know the answer. Ones who are very loud and don't know, and ones who are very quiet, but yet still don't know. Trump is just a loud person. He's the one that you can see, you can put your finger on. But it is my experience, even as a Democrat, or someone who leans more Democratic, if you will, it's just funny to me to watch when there is dissension. There is lack thereof dissension when everybody has their ideal on a candidate. The reason why none of those 6 out of those 8 had to agree is because it's political suicide. The party is so trumped up that even if you have a better policy, if you were to say right now, look how Chris Christie did. Look how Chris Christie did. He was damn near booed when he spoke up against. And I think that's the real big issue here. Take it out of just Trump as a person.
Yep.
It's a cult-like following in politics that is very dangerous, where it drives a person. I ask myself sometimes, are these people really who they present themselves to be, or are they just moving in line with the politics? Because remember, they also need to get donors. You don't get donors, you don't end up on that stage. So some people up there have to say things that they don't even disagree with. They have to mollycoddle that man. And I think that in itself is the big issue in politics, where it's when you have a larger than life person, no one else has an opportunity, whether they're qualified or not. And again, back to my example of the loud person who doesn't know the answer and the quiet person. We saw this also with the Democratic Party and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
We saw that with Donna Brazile and what they did. It's like you could not have another choice. And I think that is what makes this country interesting. And I think people are starting to see it. The country of opportunity and the country of choice, it's not as many choices as we make ourselves think there are. It's like we're going to choose, and then you have a choice. And
absolutely. Absolutely. Richard Collins, you checked in. You say it's a power shot. Richard said, Sinead, that it's a power shot, not a mug shot. Richard, you keep saying power shot. It's a power shot. It could be. It's still, you still got a sheriff's badge behind you, though. But it is what it is. You could call it a power shot. We can call it, I mean, he called it a mug shot. The former president said, it is what it is. I took a mug shot. That's what he said. It is what it is. So if we make it something more than what it is, then we deluding ourselves. Stride Iron Style. Thank you, Richard, for checking in. Stride Iron Style. You said, I totally agree with you, Farajii. What we do with this situation will indeed affect us for generations to come. Absolutely. Absolutely. Here's the thing. Here's very quickly. I read this piece from one of my favorite New York Times columnists by the name of David Brooks. He wrote this piece called "Why Are Americans So Awful to One Another" for The Atlantic. It's a fascinating piece. But one of the things he mentioned was that Americans over the past 40 to 50 years, we have lost our sense of morality. Now, David writes a lot about character, morality, culture, society, and everything. But he said we have lost a lot of morality. And even the term being moral has diminished, has slowly been diminishing from the American lexicon. So to the point where we don't even consider that to be a major quality in a person anymore. Two words actually talked about: morality and integrity. Two key words that should be a part of what we are in terms of this democracy, in terms of this country. They're not even really a part of the lexicon anymore. That's not a part of the talking anymore. Because now we're at this place where anything goes. Anything goes. Values, morals, integrity, these things. So when he was talking about picking leaders, these qualities don't come up. We're looking for leaders that appeal to us visually. We look for leaders that appeal to our personal politics. We don't necessarily look for leaders that are moral, that have whose values align with us. And I'm talking about in whole, not just individually, in whole. We don't say, well, how much integrity? We know that if you are a politician, you automatically lie, and therefore we try to pick the politician that lies the least versus the politician that doesn't lie as much or not at all, right? So when we're looking at these levels and this kind of like layers of things, how do we break out of that, bro? How do we get back to a place where we can talk about morality, where we can choose leadership for being good-hearted people and not because of their status or them being famous?
Well, one might retort to that statement, when were we ever moral? It all depends who you ask. Because if we're talking about pre-70s and 60s, to a black person, that wasn't morality when we were fighting for civil rights. If you talk about the 80s, more of the Reagan days, that also wasn't immoral to black and Latinos who were living in the inner cities where crack and cocaine was running rampant, and then they were getting arrested for it. I think what I appreciate the most about Donald Trump, yes, you heard me right, appreciate, he is what America really is. He is that stain that we like to hide, that stain that Ronald Reagan got to hide and be lauded as a great man, that stain that many other Republicans and Democrats get to hide from, that maybe George Bush got to hide from. He is the obvious one. He's like, yeah, I am that. And I don't care how you feel about it. And it's good for us to see that, because that has been America. The difference between Donald Trump and maybe some people hundreds of years ago is that they were more quiet and clandestine, but they felt the same way, because as you can see, Donald Trump still affects the same people. The Constitution thumping the same people who said that you and I were 3/5 of a person. He's attracting those same people. So it doesn't matter that he is more street-like with his words than scholarly. The mindset is the same. I am better, you are not. I am to be empowered, you are not. So I look at it like that. This country doesn't know its morals, because anytime you see it doing something morally correct, they are doing it in complete concert with something morally incorrect, but they're hiding it, right?
Yeah.
Putting you in the outer banks so we don't see poverty while the inner city grows. We've seen that for decades. That's the morality we're questioning. I just think there is a realness now where people no longer want to hide who they are, and they're showing it. People are still choosing them.
And there's and I know some people are saying that politics should not include God. Politics should not include the morality factor. But I mean, look, this is what I've learned, and I know we got to take a quick pause. But here's the thing I learned about people is that we can't talk about making good policy if it doesn't originate from a good idea or a good thought first. So you can't say, well, what about morality? That brings in a religious element. Okay, let's not put it in a religious context, but you should have a sense of right and wrong, good and evil. You see what I'm saying? Like, these things guide. If your thought process is not rooted in something, it's not rooted in morals, it's not rooted in values, right? If it's you want to be a degenerate, and you institutionalize that thinking into policy, then that's going to affect people. If your attitude, your biases, if our biases are institutionalized into policy, that's going to affect people. It's kind of hard to say, well, I'm to compartmentalize who you are for good policy. I am one way, but my policy says something else. Then that means you're not authentic to your real self. And that's even worse. You should bring some level of yourself into the things that you promote and advocate for. Otherwise, then what the hell are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? Like that's not good policy. If it doesn't speak from you, directly from you, or if it doesn't align with your values, everybody's in this space right now. A lot of people that says, I want to be authentic. I want to align it in my values. We're not seeing it. You think something is wrong, or you might think something is right, but then if you don't believe it, but you put it out there as such, it gets to create a real disparity about who you are and how you see yourself, and more importantly, building relationships and creating a sense of community. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, more conversation. And then let's see if we can get into a little bit of start a conversation with Brother Sinead do about the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. Stay with us. We got a lot to cover in in a few minutes of the first hour here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about Trump's mugshot and talking about the implication of it at home and abroad. Everybody has seen this mugshot, but this is a bigger picture. This is so much bigger than the personality of one man, of Donald Trump. Yes, I mean, in And if you feel like, he's gotten his due, he was in there, he processed through the Fulton County Sheriff's Department. 20 minutes later, he's out the door. He said his mugshot, it is what it is. And he's still moving on. And he's still moving on. And guess what? The world is looking at this situation. And it speaks volumes about where we are in this country. I got my brother Sinead who I call for. Let's open up this conversation even more, Sinead. 2 black people were indicted along with former President Donald Trump. Let's bring up Keenan. Let's show Harrison Floyd, the former leader of Black Voices for Trump. Look at this. This is Trevion Cutie. This is Trevion Cutie, and Trevion Cutie is the former publicist for Kanye West. She was booked today on a $75,000 bond. Her charges, 3 counts, 1 of violation of the Georgia RICO Act, 1 of influencing witnesses, 1 of conspiracy to commit solicitation of false statements. And this sister is smiling. If this was my mother, my sister, my auntie, the question I would ask Sinead is, what the hell are you smiling about? What are you smiling about, sis? You could go to jail for making a stupid ass decision. That's embarrassing for your family. What are you smiling about? Tiana, you checked in and said, I'm embarrassed that she is from Chicago. Lord Jesus. I mean, Sinead, what are we going to do? All right, so that's Trevion Cutie. Can we, Keenan, let me know when you pull up Harrison Floyd. There we go. Harrison Floyd. Let's talk about Mr. Floyd. Mr. Floyd is the former head and the director of Blacks for Trump's operation. Crazy thing about Mr. Floyd, he's part of this whole situation, violation of the RICO Act. I'm going to pull up this information right here real quick, y'all, on Mr. Floyd. And Mr. Floyd, the crazy part about him, he's actually sitting in jail right now. He's the only one of the college. Exactly. Congratulations. He's actually sitting in jail right now. He was booked yesterday. He could not negotiate a bond agreement, so therefore he's sitting in jail. But part of the reason he's also sitting in jail, not just because of the bond, he was served a subpoena a couple of months ago by a federal officer, and he assaulted a federal officer at that time. Talk to me, Sinead. Talk to me. He's sitting in jail right now, yo. And this is not to make fun of it. This is not to like, oh, this is funny, because guess what, man? This is embarrassing. This is embarrassing. You got the floor, brother.
Well, I'll say this. I do not. His case is different, but I want to make a general statement as it pertains to African Americans who were with Trump or worked with Trump during the administration. I like to remind people of this. While that man was president, HBCUs still needed money. Inner city Black areas still needed money. We still, whether we can call him our president or not president, let me tell you one thing. That money, we still needed that money to make great decisions in our cities. So for those who are African American who did work and try to make the world a better place with a crazy man, you know, I tip my hat to you. It's not an easy job, but I understand. But for folks like him, now that was that. For folks like Brother Floyd and Sister who's smiling, what makes me laugh is that y'all are nowhere on the top 10 of the list of the people that Trump will save if he gets saved. You're not even on the top 25. But y'all, you ain't had no business. You ain't had no business working for this man in that capacity. Because ain't no Black person issue. It ain't no business. But when I heard that he was the only one in jail, I can't even repeat what I said, but I found it funny. I found it funny because it's like, it reminded me of and I use this a lot, that scene in Django Unchained, you know, Samuel L. Jackson's character was so enthralled with the fact that they had killed his master or they had shot the master that you're not even realizing that this house is about to burn down, that you are in this house, that your ass could get shot next. And I think many of us African Americans who were black people for Trump, they were so enthralled in the dystopian idea that they forgot that when it all falls down, shout out to the lady who we used to work with for Kanye, when it all falls down, who gonna have your back?
Hey man, ain't nobody gonna have your back, man. You can't come back, man. Nobody gonna have your back. Come on, Shanidi. Come on.
Ain't no super, and I'm gonna keep it real. Ain't no super PAC raising money for niggas get caught up with that man. I'm just gonna say it straight up like that, because that's Giuliani ain't worried, and the rest of them white men ain't worried. But that's the thing. This is almost like what happened to Omarosa. Y'all get so close that y'all believe and perceive that you get the privilege of these people, and that is never going to be the case. They will take your help. They will take your vote. They will take your assistance. And then when it all falls down, they will look the other way and bump their shoulders. Let Herman Cain be your example.
I hear the mic dropping in the background, bitch, and they do. I hear the mic dropping. You talking, you saying something. Let me share with you what our crew is saying. Karen, my sister Karen Connor, you said the black people who aligned themselves with this mess ruined their lives and brought shame on their families and legacies. Our ancestors are rolling in their graves. Our ancestors ain't rolling in their graves, Karen, respectfully. They're not rolling in their graves because there's always been just a couple. There's always been a small few of us who think that closeness means purity, in the sense of you get caught up in another man's drama, another man's dirt. And especially a man like Trump. This is not even about skin colors as much as it is about character. It could be on a black man, but you get caught up in the madness of this man. And this is what happens. You get sullied. You get soiled. You get tainted. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. Mm-hmm. That's what happens. You see what I'm saying? And like, again, if I was her son, nephew, I'd be like, what the hell are you smiling for, man? Let me see something here. Jacqueline Boateng, my sister, you said true. The Stevens and Django are skin, but not kin. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Conscious Thought, my guy, you checked in. You said just like the black dude from the January 6th attempted overthrow of the government, he received one of the harshest prison terms given out by a judge/jury. He said, I believe 84 months. He received it. And it's like, we don't get the picture, bro. That's the problem. As we don't get the picture, like we don't get the message. Again, this is about character. This is about making a plan for yourself, man. If anybody calls you with some get rich scheme, how many of you are just going to jump in? Oh, yeah. Soon as they say you know how they support. They didn't say former president. They'd be like, President Trump wants. Click. And if it's for the money, is money that important? You see what I'm saying, Sinead? He'll say, I'll pay you $1 million for you to provide this service. Man, I'm clicking. I'm turning up the phone. Again, going back to morals, going back to values, going back to integrity.
Because we don't know where that money came from. And you don't
know where that money came from. But come on, man. Come on, bro.
He don't pay his employees, talk less of you wanting to be a contractor.
Come on. Trump never pays people for the work they do for him.
Come on.
They gotta take him to court in order to get paid. He just fired the lawyer. Just a couple of days ago, the lawyer down in Fulton County, just before he took the mugshot. He just fired him. Absolutely insane. All right, Lana, my sister, you said she is a disgrace for doing what she did to a black woman. They are going to throw the book at her. Mm. Thank you, Lana. Sandra Frazier, you checked in and said some of us refuse to get off the plantation. You got to get off the plantation with your mind first, though. Thank you, Sandra. Keon W, my man, you said Farajii, the money is always the motive. That's the dumb. And trust me when I say this, you're absolutely right. Dumb metric to use. You can't buy me, son. You can't buy me. You can't buy me. When again, morals, values, integrity. Look, real quick, Sinead, because I know we got to hop off, take another pause. Let's move from this because we know this is the travesty of America, what we're seeing with this Trump drama. And I know you got to jump off. We're going to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. What's your take on that, bro? As Reverend Al Sharpton, the King family, 100 community organized, there are 100 organizations that are going to be gathering in Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Folks, y'all know, y'all can stay tuned for the Black Star Network for the coverage of that from Brother Roland and other places. But 60 years, the call was for jobs, the cause was for justice. 60 years later, that still seems to be the call, but then there's some other pieces in that talking about threats to democracy, criminal justice reform, and voting rights. What's your take on that, bro?
I get so tired of the song. I listen. The March on Washington is a very historic part of our lives, but we also need to be very careful with that word historic, because that word historic just tells you that there's a historical significance. That doesn't always transfer into relatability of what is happening now. I appreciate the movement of March and I appreciate the movement and togetherness, but I think in order for these marches to be more sustainable, I think a lot of these big names need to come back and get more localized. People in the communities. I'll say this. If there's one thing I can appreciate about the Nation of Islam, and I always use them as an example, is they're exactly where the people who need them are. It don't matter what they have in the bank. They're not trying to be a high rise in Northwest and be so far removed. They're exactly where the people need them to be. I love Al Sharpton, but I fear that as the years continue, it's like you're further and further from the people on the ground, yet sensationalizing the issues that plague them. And there's danger in that. So I appreciate this march to commemorate what was happening. But you know what I find interesting?
What's that?
When we do a march or something in regards to 9/11, it's never forget, but it's also never again. When they do a something to commemorate, the Holocaust and those who are lost, it's also with never again, strength in never again. We didn't even get the civil rights we marched for the first time. 60 years later, we didn't get it. We didn't get it. And people are like, yeah, but we got a piece of it. If I give you a piece of a burger, did you have the burger? Did you have a piece? So I'm very conflicted. I'm proud and honored to stand on those shoulders of greatness of 60 years ago. But 60 years later, I feel like we're just still in rotation. And I felt like we were closer then than we are now, because we are a lot of the sponsorship, a lot of everything that is pushing this, the origin of that money is not us. It is not us putting up money together and putting it into our church and getting in a church bus and coming down or saving up all year to come down. And it's these big corporations who are donating, Fight the Power, all that good stuff. And then you come and you feel really good about yourself. You feel really good until you get back on that damn bus and you go back into your communities and see ain't shit moving, ain't shit shaking. So that's how I feel. Until I can see stuff in my actual community being moved and people being focused on my community beyond days of celebration and reclamation of people like MLK, love MLK, it doesn't do anything for me, because what else is on?
That's a mouthful. We're going to leave it right there. Brother Sinead Wakwafor, thank you so much, dear brother. I look forward to reconnecting with you next week, God willing. But You said a mouthful. On the other side, folks, we're going to decipher what Brother Shanadu said about that. I'm going to get my sister Corinna Denise checking in a moment to get her thoughts on this. And let's continue the conversation on the other side. Folks, you're tuned into The Culture right here, only here, exclusively here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When you go into a barbershop in a 700 credit score neighborhood, black or white, they're talking about their ideas and they're talking about how they're going to move on those things. You go to a barbershop at a 500 credit score, equal brilliance, but bad culture, they're talking about other people. You go to a winner's barbershop, here's what I'm doing. You go to the barbershop of where people feel defeated, they talk about other people, either celebrities or people they admire, but also often, I don't like Joe. I don't like Roland Martin. Well, let me tell you something. I don't understand people. How could you not like anything here you see? You should just be like, this is amazing. It's cool. You may not even like how he does it or how I do it, but it's like, you know what? They're succeeding. They're killing it. All you should be is, that's fantastic. But if I don't like me, I'm not gonna like you. If I don't feel good about me, it's hard for me to feel good about you. If I don't respect me, don't expect me to respect you. If I don't love me, I don't have a clue how to love you. And here's the big one. If I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm gonna make your life a living hell.
For decades, the tobacco industry has deliberately targeted black communities and kids with marketing for menthol cigarettes. It's had a devastating impact on black health. Tobacco use claims 45,000 black lives every year. It's the #1 cause of preventable death. In the 1950s, less than 10% of black smokers used menthol cigarettes. Today, it's 85%. Menthol cools and numbs the throat, making it easier for kids to start smoking. Menthol also increases addiction, making it harder for smokers to quit. Menthol cigarettes are a big reason why black Americans have a harder time quitting smoking and die at higher rates from smoking-related diseases like cancer, heart disease, and stroke. It's time to stop big tobacco from profiting off black lives. An FDA ban on menthol cigarettes will improve black health, save lives, and protect future generations from addiction. Learn more at tobaccofreekids.org/ban menthol.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. If you missed the first hour, we had a very good discussion about the Trump mugshot that was seen around the world, and more importantly, the implications of where we are right now politically in this country. So if you missed that first part, make sure you can be a part of Team Replay and check it out on blackstarnetwork.com. Also, we're streaming right now on Amazon News, on your Fire TV and Plex TV that where you can find Black Star Network. So we're streaming in those two places 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And now, of course, we are streaming on Facebook, where you can join the conversation. And it is also on YouTube, our YouTube chat under Roland Martin, where the discussion is had. Come over to the YouTube chat and be a part of today's Culture Crew as we have these conversations. And again, we thank you for tuning in and, of course, for your generous support of the work that we're doing here. All right, folks, we want to continue the discussion that I briefly started in the first hour, which is to talk about the 60th anniversary of the Great March on Washington that it's going to be taking place this weekend, tomorrow in Washington, D.C. And I highly advise you guys, everyone, to tune into Black Star Network. You know that our headquarters is in Washington, D.C. We're right there on Black Lives Matter Plaza. So trust and believe, we will be there. Brother Roland will be providing that level of coverage, and there's so much that needs to be said and discussed and exposed. But this Great March on Washington, a march that has been called by the King family in partnership with Reverend Al Sharpton with the National Action Network, and 100 other organizations are convening in Washington, D.C. tomorrow to once again make the call for civil rights. But they're adding to that, not just talking about civil rights, jobs, and economic opportunities, but it will also address a range of issues, including threats to democracy, criminal justice reform, and voting rights. And so I want to share with you this latest piece coming from my sister, Donna Owens, and she wrote it for NBC News. And then I'm going to bring my sister, Corinna, and I would love to hear from you, crew, as we have this part of the conversation. But Sister Donna wrote in her piece for NBC, she said, decades later, an event to mark the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington is scheduled this Saturday with the theme, not a commemoration, a continuation. I love it. While the 1963 demonstration centered around civil rights, jobs, and economic opportunities, Saturday's event will also address a range of issues, including threats to democracy, criminal justice reform, and voting rights. Despite the significant progress we have made, we need to rededicate ourselves to the mission my dad gave his life for, said Martin Luther King III, the eldest son of the slain civil rights icon and the late Coretta Scott King. He said, we have to do better. This anniversary gives us the opportunity to not just commemorate his historic calling, but to continue his efforts to make life better for everyone. All right, let me just hear what you got to say as we're talking about commemorating the 60th anniversary. And Sister Donna pointed out in her piece how core values, core issues are still relevant for today, even 60 years later. Folks, I want to get your take on this and have this conversation about what your expectations are, not just for this march, because this is not just about a march. Let's go a little bit deeper. This is an event, right? But a march, a demonstration of this size, it's really about recommitting ourselves to the struggle. It's an opportunity for us to get ourselves back into the swing of things. Because sometimes, and this is currently what's happening in our culture, if we can get on one track and then we get distracted. We get distracted. And it's understandable because you have a lot of stuff. We got a lot of things coming at us. But these marches are important. And people always ask, well, what's the point of the march? What's the point of a demonstration? Why can't we just... Because it brings the focus back en masse on key things that we all should be thinking about. It's a way to bring people back to the ultimate point. Yes, it's an event, but it's more of a recommitment, a call to recommitting ourselves to the issues. It's a call to connect ourselves with other people, new people. It's a call to action. Sometimes we need a call to action to just shake us out of the humdrum nature of things, right? And so that's why I appreciate marches. I'm not going to downplay any march because sometimes it is at marches where people gain consciousness, their minds become open. I remember hearing from the Million Man March to the Million Youth March to the Justice for Else demonstration held from the Great March on Washington. When you hear those speakers, when you're around all of these people, you feel the energy, the vibrations. When you are in the space of opening your mind to new ideas, opening your mind to seeing yourself differently, especially for Black folks in this country, then it's not just about the march itself. It is about that experience of becoming more conscious. And I think that is, we can't downplay that. We can't act as if that's not important. Gatherings help us to become aware. They help to inform us, but also they do something to the spirit to get us revitalized and make us feel whole again. And like, we're not in this fight by ourselves. It's a beautiful, beautiful experience. And so if you are in the Washington, D.C. area, going to be there this weekend, if you live in the area, go to the march, go to the celebration, hear what people are saying, get connected with folks. Don't downplay. It's like, oh, it's another march. Well, what are you doing to get people in mass? And I'm talking about, this is a in mass type of demonstration. What are you doing? Maybe if you go to the march, you will have an opportunity to get rid some of that pessimism and to become more optimistic that, you know what, I'm a part of a larger cause here. I'm a part of a larger chain here. More importantly, I'm a part of a movement. All right, let me bring my sister in, Corinna Denise, checking in from the great state of Florida. Corinna, good afternoon. Happy Friday, Corinna. How you feel?
Happy Friday. Yes.
It's Florida Friday. I get it. All right, so look, let's talk a little bit about this. 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. We are here. And again, it's not just about jobs, justice, economic opportunities. It's something deeper. Black people in this country, and let me just say this. Let me share this very quickly before I ask this question. King, let's put quote number 2 up on the screen from this piece, because this is very important. Dr. Martin Luther King III and his wife, Andrea Waters King, who heads the Drum Major Institute, a think tank based on the Elder King principles, they are organizing a march with Reverend Al Sharpton, president of the National Action Networks, and 100 other partners. They've enlisted, here's the thing, they've enlisted a broad coalition, Corinna, from civil rights organizations to groups representing Black, Latino, Asian American, Jewish, LGBTQ, women, labor, clergy, and other constituencies. The collective goal, forwarding the work necessary to elicit peace, justice, and equity. Dr. Al Sharpton said, we're still marching because civil rights are under erosion and the rights of far too many Americans are under relentless attack. Hate crimes are rising, facts, and I presided over so many funerals after police killings. This is what Sharpton said. He said, there is a concerted effort to undermine our democracy. There are many working to peel away these rights and suppress our history. All right, Corinna. What's your take on this? 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. Is it necessary for us to go back to make these demands to the federal government and, more importantly, to Black America and to all of America?
It's always necessary. I feel like this is something that just doesn't end, right? There is no end to it. It's always necessary. And let me just say, too, I can't believe that it's been 60 years. You know, I remember being a child learning about the March on Washington.
Right.
So we capitalize on this moment right now to make the connection with our youth, right? Young people, our children, especially considering everything that's happening here in Florida and across the country with, you know, wanting to erase history, eliminate history. Ultimately, we need to make the connections, especially at this poignant moment right now, things that are happening here in this country that are affecting us all. I definitely wish I could be at the march. If I was in the DMV area this weekend, I would be, but I will be looking at the footage covered, and I really want to see the youth. You know, how many families are actually going to be bringing out their young children or young people to this march. But I think it's very important what Martin Luther King III, Reverend Al, and everyone else involved are doing. I really like the fact that they're reaching out and collaborating and getting other organizations involved is going to broaden the coalition, especially with groups who are already involved in those organizations, bringing us all together. It's so important, especially because I think a lot of times we feel that we're on the front lines by ourselves, right? As Black people in the country. And it's going to take more than just Black folks to move us forward. So I'm really happy to see that they are doing this. But in addition to that, something that does concern me just a side note, and when I listen to media, oftentimes you hear the threats to our democracy, threatening democracy. And I just wonder how often when other people hear democracy, do they understand what that means and what it means to them in their lives? You know what I mean? I think we need to clearly define what democracy is and not take for granted that everyone knows what that is and how it affects them. You know, and I think we need to be very clear and concise and sometimes rudimentary for people, right? Make it digestible so that they understand, oh my goodness, this does affect me. This is going to impact my life in some significant way. So, you know, I hope there's some follow-up, like, okay, how do we keep the momentum going? Because I felt Sinead on that last segment, Farajii, when he was like, man, you feel so good, you know, when you're there and the moment, and all the good energy, which is so true. But then you go back home and you're like, damn, okay, what do I do now? And I'm pushing, but this still isn't happening. So how do we keep up the momentum and the significance of this weekend? But yeah, 60 years, we definitely need to connect and reflect back and keep going forward and just keep building up our coalition. How's this going to affect us, especially for 2024, you know?
And guess what? This is, you know, if you work in the activism organizing space, you know, sometimes going to marches refills the cup. It refills the spirit. That's what I've experienced, right? Personally, that I've gone to these demonstrations. I remember 10 years ago going to the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington in DC, 10 years ago. And when I went there, the energy, the hope that you feel, like if you've never experienced going to these mass demonstrations, folks, I'm telling you, it's a very, very different experience because you start to feel different. You start to even think, Corinna, I remember going to those marches, and I think I went to a lot of these big marches, especially for Black America, and being there and just feeling like hopeful again. Because you're connected to like-minded people that care, people that want to see our people win. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the beauty of that, right? You need an energy booster. You need to be when you're depleted, right? You're exhausting all your resources and you just feel like you're hitting a roadblock. You need to be around that sense of community. You know, when we're feeling down, we got to build up, right? And pull from each other. Yeah, I think that's really important. We have to be.
That's important. And let me tell you, this is a perfect opportunity to bring young people.
Yes.
Perfect opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Like to bring your teenagers. Again, folks, if you're in the area, go. If you bring your teenagers, if you bring your preteens and you bring them in, and they start to experience, even when I went to the reparations, we had the Black Lives Matter 10-year anniversary here in LA. Then we had the reparations piece in LA. Bring it, and I'm seeing small children trust and believe. You're dropping the seed in your children when you bring them into a space where they can hear about the liberation of Black people. They can hear about their history. They can see and touch and feel other folks, not just Black folks, but just other people that want to see this country and go into a better space. It makes a world of difference. But if we start to act like, oh, who's putting on the march? What they talking about? Oh, they're going to have this person or that person, this group there, that group there. Let me tell y'all something. Based on where we are right now, we need all the help and support we can get.
Oh my God,
this country needs empowered citizens.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Please. I'm not, look. Hey, look, Corinne, I'm not in that space of crapping on somebody for an effort.
Right.
Because how can you? How can you? And I know people like, oh man, it's soft and blah, blah, blah. What are you doing?
I believe Corey Bush said, we bang until the end.
We bang until, look, let me tell you something. This is where I am right now. This is where I am. If a Black leader, Black family, if people outside of the Black community who are doing things in the best interest of Black people in this country are putting on demonstrations, I'm supporting it. Yeah. That's what it comes down to for me at this point. I'm not asking, because guess what? Truth can come from any person's mouth and empowerment can happen any time or day. So if we start to get into the selective form of not participating, not doing things, not wanting to
focus of the goal. We lose focus of the goal.
Facts. All right, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. The 60th anniversary of the Great March on Washington is happening this weekend. Folks, let's think beyond just the demonstration of the march as an event, but let's talk a little bit about these issues. Let's talk about the ongoing continuation of a movement. Share your thoughts, post your comments on our YouTube page under Roland Martin right now. We'd love to hear what you got to say, and stay tuned. We got a lot more to cover here on the second hour of The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We have been talking about the upcoming Great March on Washington 60th anniversary that will be taking place tomorrow in the nation's capital. This is the Great March on Washington that has been gathered by the King family, the National Action Network under Reverend Al Sharpton, and many other organizations that represent not just Black folks in this country, but also LGBTQ members, Jewish community, the white community, the Native American community. As there's going to be a number of folks, a diverse coalition, broad-based coalition of folks that are going to be convening in Washington, D.C. to continue the call for economic security and economic opportunity, continue to call around jobs and justice, to continue to call about the threats on democracy, voting rights issues, and other issues. And folks, we have been talking to my sister, Corinna Denise, one of our great culture crew members, to get her take on this, but I would love to hear from you, crew. What's your take as we're talking about going back to Washington, making these demands, not just to the federal government, but to the rest of America in Washington, D.C., as we celebrate 60 years from that historic day of from 1963. And I want to go to the crew right now, Corinna, because folks are checking in. Nicole Smith checked in and said, we need a God political revolution. And my man, Real Brooklyn, said, we need God, period. A nation that forgets God is pretty much doomed. Well, we might be living in one right now. I think so. Yeah. But I get it. I think that, Corinna, and I'm saying this with great humility and sincerity, you cannot have any type of movement if there isn't a spiritual component. And I think that that's what's forgotten in this part of the discussion, right? We want politics, we want policy, we want activism, but where's the spiritual component? Because the real ills that are facing people, in my belief, facing the big social problems are coming from the character, are coming from the internal operations of a person. So there has to be a reconnection. I remember when I went to the Million Man March 28 years ago, and many people would say, oh, the ministers should have made this a political thing. The ministers should have had us do policy or check in or tell us who to vote for. And I remember the minister making the point. He said that wasn't the purpose of the movement. When you're talking about atonement, reconciliation, and responsibility, that is an internal process. Now, once you become healed, whole, and healthy, you start to think a certain way. Therefore, policy will start to come out of your thinking that reflects that a new consciousness. But it has to start there first before you can jump into policy. I said this in the first hour. You can't have good policy unless you're a good person.
So do you think that's that lead up to being able to receive what is given when folks actually go to marches and gatherings of this nature? Do they have to be in a certain mindset or in a certain type of, energy to receive,
I think so. I think so.
What are we going to tell our folks, right? How do they prepare themselves to be in a position to receive, right? Speaking to your point about the spiritual piece. See, these are questions that I'm raising as we're talking about it.
No, I think these are super valid questions and important questions. I think that when we go to these demonstrations, that we do have to kind of like break out of the comfort zone a little bit and open ourselves up to the possibility of new ideas, new thoughts, a different energy. If we go to these, we have to be very open, right? Be willing to take in whatever the energy, whatever the universe, however you want to frame it. But we have to be willing to take in something, right? When you go to these marches. If you go to these marches,
Farajii, we forget that although I think sometimes it's forgotten that although we might differ in tactic or strategy, we usually never waver from the ultimate goal, right? Which is true liberation. I think we'll argue, we'll fight, we'll disagree as to how we actually get there. But also, we all have our eyes on the same goal, the same focus. We all want to acquire the same thing, liberation. So it's just about trying to figure out how do we disagree without being disagreeable and being open to hearing each other, right? And not just shutting each other down like, okay, well, enlighten me. Why do you feel that way? And why do you think this would work better than maybe what I suggested? And can we come to a compromise?
Okay, and let's see. Check this out. To that point, we can do that. And I think that our ultimate goal is to do that. There's a lady by the name of Tina Rosenberg. She wrote, she founded this platform called the Solutions Journalism Network, right? And she's a columnist. She wrote for the New York Times for many years. But one of the things she talked about is that the reason why we're in this space, and especially in terms of public discourse, which is why she founded this network called Solution Journalism, is because when you start to raise the conversation, raise the consciousness of people, then the public discourse around those issues start to get raised up as well. Like we can have different things. We can have the old conversations in new ways. And one of the things that she talked about is that we're living in a time where we don't have to quote unquote reinvent the wheel. If we have social problems, I bet you there's somebody somewhere in this country that has an answer to every social problem. It's just the fact of how do we get these social problems to new people? I mean, these solutions to new people. And so, for example, every march that I have gone to from 95 all the way up to this present day, every time we convene, there's always some agenda, especially when you're talking about for Black America, some agenda, some policy. Tavis Smiley had the contract with Black America. We come up with these great ideas, right? And guess what happens? We talk about these things during the time of the event time or the demonstration. But then the conversation starts to drift off, and we don't bring the ideas that were presented to us at these demonstrations. We don't keep talking about it. And then say 3 months from the demonstration, the actual event, we say we don't have a plan for Black America. We don't have no strategy. And that's not true. It's just that we are not taking the ideas that we left on the table and bringing them into new people and having different nuanced conversations about, hold on. Back in 1995, they did this. Back in 2000, so-and-so, they did this. Can we go back? Let's look at what they did. There's a blueprint. We keep wanting to reinvent the wheel, and we put an undue burden on ourselves, Corinne. This is what I truly believe. Undue burden on ourselves in trying to think of something so new, so brand new, so innovative, so out of the box, when Black folks already thought of this stuff. Because guess what? We're still addressing the same issue from 60 years ago. But have we had a chance?
Due to us not knowing our history, not studying our history, not reading, not consulting with the elders. I think those are a lot of the factors that play into why we are more motivated or more likely to just go and reinvent the wheel, right? Instead of doing our research to see, well, did this happen before? For example, a lot of times we talk about adding a third party. Like, what third party? There have been so many parties, right? There's some third parties per se in existence right now. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be an additional party, but what I'm saying is sometimes it's spoken as if it's never happened. And that's
here's the thing. No, and I agree with you. Like, if we have a conversation about a third party, yes, you got the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, all of these parties. But look at the history of 1972 of what we saw in Gary, Indiana, when that was the first major demonstration. 10,000 Black people convened in a high school gym in 1972 to convene and at least discuss the possibility of creating a third Black political party that included Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, Kwame Ture, and a number of other intelligent Black people who came up with a plan of action, who had conversations. These were conversations that we had 50 years ago.
Yes.
But somewhere along the line, we got distracted and we have to now revisit those conversations, right? But
and
we
there are a lot
have
of
to do the work.
Distractions too. A lot of intentional distractions. And
that's the point. That's the point. So when we come together like these big demonstrations, I think we got to be open. I think there are some nuances. Of course, we're in a new space, but at the end of the day, if they come up with a plan of action for Black America from now until up to the presidential election, let's really consider the ideas, right? If they say, okay, so this organization has this part of the agenda, this organization has this part of the agenda. Let's not get back into the culture, into the habit of taking in new information, processing it, and then not doing anything with it.
Right.
Because we actually do have the answers to our problems if we just listen to each other. And if we study our history a little bit, we don't have to go back 100 years. We can go back 25, 30, 40 years, and we can start to just glean from all of that has been done up to this moment. So to your original point, as we take our next pause, we got to be open. We got to be open. Let me just share this very quickly. Gregory, you said the plan is to vote consistently, period. It will not all come to us in one vote. Anyone who thinks this needs a class in civics, that's fine. That's fine. But there are some other things that we could do, Gregory, along with voting. And that's the part that we don't talk about as enough, to my opinion, Corinna. We don't talk, yes, let's vote. But then what else can we do? What can we do on the ground? What can we do between elections? What can we do today?
Yeah,
that's going to help people.
We need to start communicating and putting out like a visual map of sorts as like what this process looks like. Yeah, it starts with voting. What happens after we vote? How do we hold them accountable? How do you contact your legislatures? What does it look like to organize a march or to participate in a march? How do we get involved in our organizations, right? Yeah, how do we stay consistent and not fall off, right? How are you keeping abreast of what's going on? So I think it's just those constant check-ins. And I think to your point, yes, we don't talk about the in-between enough to keep the momentum going so that people understand this is why we're doing this now. This was part one, now we're in phase two. And until we actually break it down, I think a lot of times we take for granted that people just know what to do next. And that's not always the case. You have some people who just vote and don't follow up. But then, you know, come on. And like, you know, we have to constantly know what's going on. And yes, you know, I'm a big advocate for voting, definitely. But to your point, yeah, like what are we doing in the meantime, right? And how do we stay on them? Like I put you in this position and I'm expecting you to deliver, and I'm going to push you to your maximum capacity to make sure it gets done.
And look, movement requires consistency. Movement requires every day doing a little something to get us closer to the goal. That's movement work. That's movement work. Some of us, and this is why I say we got to go to the march, because when you go to the march and you hear the history, when you go to the market and you talk to people and hear their stories, let's look at reparations. I talked to people who's been working on that situation, Corinna, for 30 plus years. And guess what? They still haven't given up the hope that reparations will be given to all Black people in this country, right? So they haven't given up. So what keeps a man, what keeps a woman staying on that path? See, that's the part of it. That's the skill. Like once you become committed to something, each one of us have a gift, a passion for something rather.
Yes.
But you got to stay committed to the passion. What our current culture does, especially in Black culture, we have this expectation that stuff's supposed to happen overnight, or it takes a week, or we throw out. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not movement work.
No, it takes time and consistency.
It takes time. This takes time. Look, let me tell you something. How you know, some people will be like, Black leaders ain't doing nothing because we still facing the problem. Well, how long were Black people? And let's add to that. Let's add to that, Corinna. How long have Black people been enslaved? First in shadow slavery, and how long are we still enslaved mentally and morally? And so you think you're doing 2 years of movement work going to break us out of 400 years of enslavement?
Oh my gosh, yes. And
come on, man, do the math, man. Come on, do the math with me, y'all. Come on, look, I gotta take a quick pause. If the math ain't math, and folks, we gotta take a quick pause. Stay with us. More conversation with Corinna, Denise, and you here on the Culture on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been talking about the 60th anniversary of the the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington. I got movements all in my head, folks, as we talk about this and checking in with my sister, Corinna Denise, and talking about just, the importance and the necessity of going back to Washington, setting our demands, and most importantly, getting us back into a mindset, into a frame of thinking where we are going to re-energize ourselves to get back into doing the movement work. Folks, post your comments on our YouTube page under Roland Martin to be a part of the conversation. And let me bring my sister Corinna back into this. Corinna, because this is necessary work. This is not easy. It takes time. That was the final point that we left off with. It takes time. But it requires us to be in a different thinking. And I love the question that you asked earlier about, like, do we need to be open? Yes, we need to be open to this stuff, right? Some of us, I'm a self-starter. I can motivate myself, but some of us, everybody is not in that space. Some of us need to be around people. We need to hear something. We need to see something. And that's okay. That's okay. I've committed myself to this process. You've committed yourself to this process. But for somebody who's new, this takes some time. If you're talking to a 19-year-old or 20-year-old who's just starting to get some level of consciousness, then you got to invite them into something. You got to be there for something, right? You can't just throw people into the mix. This is something else, Corinna, that as we have these conversations, let's keep in mind that to some people, this is foreign. This is like talking German to some people. The idea that you got to quote unquote fight for your rights. Like, just think about that. If you tell it to a child, they'd be like, well, if you're born, why do you have to fight for something that you already are born with? But guess what? This is America. Things
and
that
we have to
you
define America, right? For those young people. What does that mean? Because everyone's not privy to all the things that you and I are privy to, right? Or even our audience. Like I think a lot of times I really believe, and just talking with folks, it's not that a lot of people don't care. Some people really are in their bubble, in their world, going through, and they are disconnected. Like folks are disconnected for a plethora of reasons, not just because they don't care, but sometimes folks just don't know. So for those of us who know, we have to be effective in communicating them, extending the invitation to invite them into these spaces so that they can have that open mindset to absorb and to take in, right? Because a lot of things too are acquired by experience, by seeing and being. I'll relate it this way, right? Like, I think most of you know, I just came back from Egypt, studying ancient Kemet, and I tell you something, Farajii, it's one thing to read about these things, learn about these things, hear about it, but to see the pyramids of Giza, to walk through those temples and to see us, all that melanin on the wall, is something entirely apart. The feeling that I just describe. So I just want to relate it in the sense of, it's one thing when you're hearing and reading and learning, but to actually be in those spaces in that moment, it does something to you, and it helps you connect all the other pieces of the puzzle that you've already had exposure to kind of have that motivation to push you to want to get more involved, to push you to want to read more, to push you to want to, you know, connect with folks who are like-minded, so that to see what innovative ideas and strategies can you come up with to keep this thing going. So I think it's just a constant work in process, right? Even for those of us who are involved, who are politically astute, who do read, who do keep in tune with the news, you know, we're constantly learning too, because we fall off. Like, you know what? When I was in Kemet, I was like, I'm not watching no news. I don't want to hear about it. You know, I remember even having a conversation with my mom, and she started telling me, I was like, you know what? I will check in when I get back. Sometimes you need to be disconnected so that you can refuel.
That's it.
And start over again, right? So I hope that's something that we just keep in mind, those who are already involved. How can we get other folks involved? You know, we have to be inviting, because if we do this, you know, it's a fail. They're not going to be interested. Your defenses are already up and you've already lost them. So we have to be mindful of that, right? To bring more folks in, to want to be open to receive and to understand our history and who we are as a people and why we have to keep fighting.
And I'm glad that you bring this point up, Corinna, because it speaks volumes about your personal growth. And I think this is an example. Your story is an example of how we can kind of build that. It takes time, right? It takes time for people to get into a certain space. And I think that's part of the reason, or part of the big challenges that we're not as far along as we should, is because we're not patient with one another. You know, we expect that if I'm at a certain space mentally, emotionally, if I'm conscious about certain things, that you should be conscious too, after just telling you 5 minutes of what some history or something like that. Yeah. Like, it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't work that way. Keon, you checked in and you said we need to talk to the bros and to the sisters that's still getting it out of the mud. Our people are still getting out of the mud. Black folks are still getting out of the mud. So, you know, some of us are so impatient with our own group, with the growth and development of our people, with the slowness.
Yeah.
Imagine doing this work. If Dr. King wasn't assassinated, he would still be doing this work today.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? Like, we got leaders who are still 60, 70 years into this work of liberation, of struggle, of freedom, justice, and equality, of having different conversations. 60 and 70 years. Whole people, regular people's lives are dedicated. There's some Black leaders that have dedicated more time than some people have actually lived.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all think on that very quickly. So when we talk about being dedicated, being committed, now, is everybody going to work that way? No. But trust and believe, I think we each should put up at least 2 to 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. That's nothing compared to life.
And I think about it this way too, because I'm a very logical thinker. Something as important as this, Farajii, would I want someone who's just like, you know what, I'm gonna put in 1 year, and that's it.
And let me just tell you, let me tell you, if the 1 year, Corinna, if the 1 year is an intentional 1 year, I ain't talking about half-ass 1 year. I'm talking about intentional. You involved, you got things moving. There's no way in the world you can get involved in movement building, liberation work for a year and not get the bug, as they say, and want to continue it. Because why? Your mind is shifted now. Your consciousness has been elevated to the point where you're like, you know what? It forces you to be a certain type of person. Here in our culture, and as we do this very quickly, once you are open to, once you expose yourself to some level of conscious knowledge, some conscious thinking, your mind never goes back to the same place. And if you try to go back to the same to the same old thinking before you became conscious, guess what happens? You suffer consequences because you are willfully trying to go back to becoming ignorant.
Yep.
Right? So we know that. So here's the other thing. That once you become conscious, you got a responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
You have a duty to use what you know to benefit not just yourself, not just your immediate family, but to those who don't know. That's our responsibility.
Right.
So some of us don't want to do the movement stuff. We don't want to do the demonstration stuff because guess what? We don't want that responsibility.
But you know what?
But we want to complain, but we don't want that responsibility.
Yeah. There's a role for everyone to play, though. Whether you're on the front lines, the sidelines, behind the scenes, you know, all things have to work together to make the thing work. So yeah. I sincerely believe there's a position for everyone to play. You know, it could be administrative, it could be demonstrations. There's so many pieces that have to come together. So I don't want anyone to think that there isn't something you can't do. Everyone has a talent. Everyone has a gift. Everyone has something to bring to the table to make this thing work. And everyone's ideas are needed, required to make it work.
Absolutely. I got to take this quick. Let me take a quick pause. When we come back, let's get some final thoughts. Stay with us. It's the Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is roland@rolandsmartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let's get some final remarks from my sister, Corinna Denise, very quickly as we talk about this. Corinna, we didn't get a chance to talk about what was going on in that Florida school that decided to apologize after.
We need a break. We need a break. I can't take it. There's always something happening down here. You know, you want to just Florida Fridays. I don't know. Like what? Yeah, I don't understand why they did that to the children.
We're not going to talk about it right now. We may get to it. We may get to it next week. But I think that the conversation that we had about the March on Washington, it speaks volumes about where we, you know, it's a necessary and important discussion, right? This stuff is happening. I'm happy to hear and see this level of demonstration. And I get some people might say they're tired of movements, they tired of marches and things like that. That's all well and good. You can get tired of the event, but don't get tired of the spirit of the event. And that's my thing. Yeah. Don't get tired of us coming together, trying to figure some stuff out in mass. We can get tired of, okay, you might say, but I would say that we all need to get regenerated. We all need to get revived. That's why you go out to these things, to get that energy back into it, right? We said it at the beginning, and I'm gonna say it again.
Sometimes, right? Like I said, like, you know, we get overwhelmed. You keep going. You need a chance to just de-escalate and take a break, and then you can go back to it, right? Stronger, more powerful than before, right? You need to refuel yourself. But yeah, I think to your point, Farajii, a great point. Like, don't lose sight of the spirit of it, right? The purpose of it, right? It might change how we're approaching things, whether it's a march, whether it's just like, I don't know, a sit-in, something, whatever it is that we feel we want to do, but we can't lose sight of the purpose. Like, why are we doing this? Why is it necessary?
And guess what? If you're not involved, if you're not participating, then that's very easy. We do have to recognize that we do have a culture of distraction. So you can have all the best intentions that you want, but you have to be intentional. You have to do something to make that intention real, and that has to be done. There has to be some action. It can't just be, I'm with y'all in the spirit, unless there's some extenuating circumstances.
Right.
But there has to be some action, because that's what's going to concretize your love. Because this is all coming from a space of love too, right? Like, we're doing this, as they say, the old saying, a labor of love. This is out of a labor of love. You know, we shouldn't have to fight for our humanity. We shouldn't have to fight for our civil rights, because those things have already been given. Those are considered to be inalienable rights. They have already been given to us by our Creator. But because we are in America in 2023, this is what we need to do. Then we have to put in that labor of love to confirm that, to affirm that. And it's a process. It is certainly a process. Corinna, I thank you. Anything, we got 30 seconds left. Anything you want to share with the crew, anything that we need to keep in mind as we go into this weekend? It's a very historic weekend with the march, but anything else you want to keep in mind?
I think, Farajii, just quickly, I think to end the segment and to wrap it up, everything we've been speaking about today and what you just mentioned about, you know, focusing on the purpose, don't lose sight of the spirit of the movement. You know, sometimes we get discouraged and we just want to sit out and not participate in things. And we got to think, do you want to do that just to feel right? Or do you want to actually, you know, get in the thing and actually achieve a goal? Because when one sits out and sits out, we're so much less stronger, and there's power in numbers. And until we actually realize how powerful we are when we come together collectively, because we've done that, but not to its maximum capacity just yet, but we have the potential. I think we're on the break of it. Then we actually have a little vision, right, of that clear insight, liberation, what we've been fighting for. Or maybe one day, maybe not in our lifetime, it is in the history books. After hundreds of years, we finally attained the goal. But we can't lose sight of it, and we can't let discouragements and disappointments keep us from pushing forward.
Absolutely. I love it. I'm not going to say nothing else to it, because I love the way you put it together. And so I thank you, Corinna Denise, for being so good for the culture and bringing your insight and everything. So thank you so much. God willing, we'll be reconnecting with you next week. But I hope you have a wonderful weekend, Corinna. Thank you.
You too, Farajii. Thanks for having me. Peace, crew.
Absolutely. All right, peace now. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. I appreciate each and every one of you. I appreciate my production team, King Keenan, Shannon, Joel, Chris, Maddie, and who I think I got everybody. Shannon, Joel, Chris, Maddie, and King Keenan. Yeah, I got everybody. Also, folks, I thank you, each one of you, for joining us. Even if we didn't get you a chance to get to your comment, I thank you for being a part of the chat on our YouTube chat under Roland Martin and being one of our great crew members for the day. Make sure you do your due diligence and support us here at Black Star Network. Go to our website today at blackstarnetwork.com and download the app for free. Follow us on social media, and please give. If you have something to give something. It could be the smallest amount, it could be the largest amount, but your support, your investment makes all the difference in the world. So make sure you give to us here on Black Star at blackstarnetwork.com. Make sure you follow me on social media. You can find me at The Real Farajii on Instagram, and I'm at Farajii on Twitter, and at Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. But I love to continue to build the community, and I thank you for your support of the work that we're doing here. Stay tuned. Up next, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will return on Monday. Make sure you check out the live streams of everything that we're doing. Again, I'm sure there's going to be some special coverage of the March in Washington 60th anniversary. So tune into that. You will find no other great, more relevant news about that march other than here on the Black Star Network. But thank you so much for your support. And God willing, we'll talk to you soon, and have a great weekend. Peace.